All right. Okay. And we should be streaming live in just a second. Here we go. I believe we're live. How you all doing today? We are well, this week has been going by a lot better than last week, I can say, and I hope it's ended off for you really well. We want to go on and jump into what we have to talk about today, and I'm really excited about it. I love talking about trauma all the time, and we talk about a lot of this in our supervision groups. And so, if you're looking for some subjects, maybe this will help you just a little bit. But today, we're going to be talking about how trauma causes. Get the mic. How trauma causes unhealthy compensation. Have you ever worked with someone who has had unhealthy compensation as a result of trauma? Now, when we were in supervision, we discussed a bit about this. And we discussed some of the defense mechanisms that come along with having unhealthy trauma. And we're going to get into that because many times after we have experienced trauma, the way that we take it in, there's some things that happen and function on an unconscious level, and it can just take us into some places that we just don't expect. And it's for us as therapists to be able to help our clients with understanding, like, you know what, the reason why you work so hard, the reason why you get so upset, the reason why you have a paranoia about being in relationships. The reason why you don't seem to like women and you're a woman, or you don't like men and you're a man, you just don't like being around them. There's something behind that. And so the more that we learn about the experience that commonly occurs behind the trauma, the more we can support individuals that we are serving. And so I've got some interesting things to talk about. Actually, Steve Harvey is in one of our scenarios today, and we're going to process something that we see with a video involving him and some experiences that he has had that I would say were pretty traumatic. And so we're going to jump into that in just a second. But just before we do that, I do want to talk a little bit about. Well, let me see if I can get this video pulled with Steve Harvey. I'm so sorry. And this is what happens. We're losing people right now. I bet. But I would love to just stop this live. Um, but everything just disappears on my screen when I get started, y'all. So you just can't panic. But we got some great stuff. So while I'm trying to pull that, I'm going to go on and share with you some of the things that we have coming up. Because if you're looking for free CEUs, this is going to be a good opportunity to be able to get a couple of free CEUs. All right. And so we have coming up very shortly. Um, a On the 21st. We're so blessed to have our speaker, our speaker, Shanika Berry, and she'll be talking on the subject animal assisted interventions for veterinary social work. And we will soon be, most of our programming as far as our monthly CU training will be free. Right now it's just free for social workers, but in the new year we're wanting to extend more opportunities to the community for free CUs, and we'll be trying. We'll do that frequently, but we it may be monthly, so stay tuned. All right, and so also we have the DSM-5 TR training for those of you all who this is a requirement for LICSWs. You want to check in on that, right? Um, and you can get that on demand. And then we have a supervisor training coming in on March 24th and 25th. We have a supervisor training March 24th, 25th. Those of you all who want to become clinical supervisors, we're excited about what we have coming up. So we want to go on and get back into trauma, right? And the impact that trauma often has when we are working with clients, right? And so often what I'll do in supervision is bring up a case and scenario. A lot of times we'll have test questions, and we'll get into discussing like how to process and to best understand how to work each case out. All right. And so this example that we want to use here, I'm going to go on and pull it up, uh, is with none other than Steve Harvey. All right. And some of you all may have heard about a story that he talks about, um, with a particular educator when he was young. Um, but this educator offended him in a really unique way. And I had a similar experience, but I'm not going to talk a lot because I've already talked too long. I'm going to go on and play and share. So let me get this set up here.
To God.
All
My
right, here we go.
father came home. She said,
And this is the thing, y'all. This is really important. We started off kind of choppy, but this is a really good example here. Um, we this is a really good example. So what I did with my group is that I want you to kind of look at this situation when you're hearing Steve talk. As a therapist, we've got to hear everything. And there's a piece of this where it seems as though the primary problem may be with one particular object. But let's continue to search and see if that's truly where the problem is. Because you're going to be asked about it. All right, let's jump into it. All right.
my father came home. She said, Slick, which was my daddy's nickname, your boy been up at the school being a smart aleck. Now, I already know I'm gonna get a whipping for this. She said, tell him what you wrote on your paper. And I said, I want to be on TV. And my father said, well, what's wrong with that? And she said, well, he being a smart aleck and putting something like that that's unbelievable on the paper. So my father said, Bill, how come the boy can't put on the paper he want to be on TV? So they were starting to get into an argument, so I got sent to my room, which I knew what that meant. That means go in your room, get ready, we're gonna get this whooping, right? So I go in my room, and after having a discussion, my father came in the room. He said, all right, this is what I want you to do. What does she want you to put on your paper? I said, I don't know, Daddy, like a basketball player, what all the rest of the kids wrote. He said, well, put that on the paper. Take that to school tomorrow and give it to her. Take your paper and put it in your drawer. Every morning when you get up, read your paper. And every night before you go to bed, read your paper. That's your paper. What he told me was a principle of success, that if you write it down and envision it, anything you see in your mind, you can hold in your hand. He knew that. And so he gave that to me. After that, every year when the teacher was living, I used to send her a TV for Christmas because I wanted her to see me. She saw me one year and she said, boy, you send me all these TV from wherever you are and you don't understand. I got too many TV. I have to get these TVs away sometime. I know, it's all right though. And I kept that paper. And that little boy with the stuttering problem is on TV 7 days a week. Yeah, I'm on TV all the time. You dig?
Hi, you.
All right. That is I think that's an amazing story. Um that Steve Harvey brings on how you can go through an experience and still have triumph. So a lot of what we're taking from this is like a principle of success. But here we look at things a little bit more differently as psychoanalysts. And so this is a very positive thing. But if Steve was to come into my office, I would look at things very differently. Because what we are seeing being described is a harm that he had brought upon him because a professor, a teacher, a grade school teacher didn't seem to give him the level of respect that he needed. She didn't seem to believe in him, and that discouraged Steve, right? Okay, and that no doubt hurt Steve. Okay, so that's one thing, but there's another thing here too, and this is what we're going to get to. Um, but I'm going to hold off on that. Have you already identified what is also a problem here that isn't stated. Probably less than half my supervisees actually saw this, identified this, and we're gonna get to it in a second. But I'm gonna show you what I do too. So, this is a question that I gave to my supervisees. Um, and we're gonna put that up in just a second, see if you know the answer to it. Which concept best describes how Steve dealt with adversity in this situation? A, rationalization. B, displacement. C, substitution. And C, compensation. Okay. And so I want you to think, what would you choose here? And so, for the sake of time, we're going to go on and let you know what the answer is. Which concept best describes how Steve uh, dealt with adversity? And the answer to that one is D, compensation. Compensation is what Steve experienced here. And let's learn a little bit about compensation. And what I try to do is when I bring these test questions up uh, to um, to my supervisees, I try to do it in a way that they are learning what the answer is, but also learning also about some of the ones that weren't correct. So we actually went over compensation, but we went over a number of other concepts here as well, right? And so who was responsible or known for this term? Uh, Alfred Adler. In the definition for this particular term, you find in individual psychology, and it involves let's talk about it. It involves overachieving in one area to make up for a deficiency in another. Overachieving in one area to make up for a deficiency in another area. And this may be true or not about Steve. I don't know. I'm not in his situation, but these are some of the things that I would talk about to see if this is actually relative to his experience. But I do think that it plays a part. So another question. What may have been a larger concern? This is the big one, right? Okay. I want to see if y'all catch this. What may have been a larger concern, uh, that's chopped up, but what may have been a larger concern, even larger than the teacher's disbelief in Steve? Did y'all catch that? What may be a larger concern that's larger than the teacher's disbelief in Steve? And if you didn't catch that, we're going to go back real quick because this happens so fast, but our clients are talking fast and we got to pick it up, right? We can't miss anything. Let's check this out.
My father came home, she said, Slick, which was my daddy's nickname, your boy been up at the school being a smart aleck. Now, I already know I'm gonna get a whipping for this. She said, tell him what you wrote on your paper. And I said, I want to be on TV. And my father said, well, what's wrong with that? And she said, well, he being a smart aleck and putting something like that that's unbelievable on the paper. So my
Okay.
father said, Bill,
That's it right there. Boom. That's it. That's it. Y'all pick that up? So the problem here is that we have a situation with the teacher, but how much different is what Steve experienced from the teacher than that of what he experienced at home with his mother? And this is not to take away credit from his mother. I may have probably done the same thing as a parent if I didn't know any better, because what happens is many times we're trying to protect our children. Okay, so that we don't want them to be believing that they can. We don't want to just tell them, "Hey, you can do this," or "You can do whatever you want to do," knowing that they're going to be disappointed. At this time, Steve had I heard when he described it, it was a really bad stuttering problem. So there were a lot of people who may, like, sometimes you're a parent in real talk, you're thinking like my child can do anything, but you really kind of know that they can't. They can't. And what's the in between to protect your child without harming them, understanding that, and so sometimes parents just don't know the proper way to emote. But the harm is that in the midst of that, many times the child is fractured. And I'm not saying Steve was fractured. I don't know his story. I'm just using this as an example. It does appear that he was fractured. Okay. And so it wasn't just that. Why is it? Let's think about this. Why is it that he was hurt so badly about the teacher not believing in him? Well, it could be when we start to do some deduction, and if we start to ask our questions here, um, we start to do the deduction here. It could be that he was hurt by this because of the fact that this is something that was familiar, that he felt this sentiment or heard these words of doubt, disbelief from his mother. I mean, as he says with his own words, is that he wanted to be on TV, but his mom said he was being a smart aleck. And I actually, do y'all really know what an aleck is? Aleck. I just really learned what that is. Been saying it a long time, but what's a aleck? Just a aleck, not a smart aleck, but a aleck. Anyway, I digress. Um, she didn't believe that she was saying what he was believing or what he wanted to do was unbelievable. That was what he said that her words were, and that he was getting himself prepared for a whipping. Okay. The parents are in the room arguing and having a conversation primarily based on his competency, his capabilities, based on belief versus unbelief, or maybe just a communication about, hey, we know that there may be some limitations, but let the child dream. Okay. And that's what one of my supervisors said. Sometimes often nowadays we're stripping the dreams away from the children. I don't know. I think I had their quote in here. This is one of my supervisors. He said, we've stopped telling the kids they can be anything they want to be, and it's a disservice to the children and changes their perspective of themselves, their capabilities, and what their future can be. That was one of my supervisors dropping that knowledge to us, right? Okay. And so here it is, the unbelief. So this is the situation that's at play here. And so this is a situation that we would need to address. And let's say that perhaps, um, we have discovered that um, let's just say perhaps we have discovered that in fact there is a connection. Once we start processing Steve in our office, there is a connection. And the reason why it hurt so bad was that it was connected with something that he's heard, right? Um, uh, but yet we observed that that Steve was given the TVs and things like that. Was that really about that woman? Was that really about the teacher? Or was it about a concept right here that we have? A, rationalization, B, displacement, C, substitution, or D, compensation. And I would say if any of this was true, that I'm speculating could have been a possibility, the energy put towards the teacher and things like that could have been a major or minor case of displacement. And so, what is displacement? Displacement is a term, a Freudian term used. Uh, and the definition is when we're redirecting emotions or actions from an original target, the original target being the mom, to a safer substitute target, that being the teacher. There's a possibility. So there's a lot of things at play here when we look at Steve's situation. And we understand that this hurt possibly for a number of reasons, because it's possible that he did not just hear this for the very first time from the teacher, but apparently it's possible that he heard these same words or it was expressed in another environment, and that could hurt. So how would we talk to Steve about this? You have to be very clever, because a lot of times if you were to bring this up, some individuals be very protective of their parents. So at the end of the video, you see Steve becoming really emotional about that. I made it. I made it. I might say something like, Steve, yeah, tell me about that, man. You did make it. You made it despite the fact that your teacher did not believe. And we might process that a little bit, and let that and talk about some of those emotions and what that brought about for Steve in his situation, how it may have impacted him even now. Or we may, it just depends on what's going on, the vibe. But then, knowing me, I've got to go deeper because we want to eradicate, to make sure there are no elements of this feeling, feelings of inadequacy, insecurity, or having issues when people don't believe in me, or having to prove myself to people. We want to make sure that's all erased. So we've talked about this, but I believe the core of our experiences when we have been negatively psychologically impacted comes from our caregivers. It doesn't mean that they're bad people. We're telling our story, not calling them out. So I would have to talk to Steve and say, Steve, and so yeah, that must have hurt. But you mentioned as well in this situation and why he's emotional, because the client is less likely to be defensive and resistant when they're in that emotion. So if he's breaking down and things like that, I might use the opportunity and I might say, but it seems, if we have a good report, it seems like she didn't believe. Tell me about the belief of your mother at that time as well. Just leave it open. Let it go where it goes. Because the true healing comes from not changing the core belief. No necessarily not there's no not a necessarily a core belief that was established by the native core belief established by the teacher. Many times our core beliefs about who we are, confident or not, are established by that parent. And so we rewire that, reshape the mind, renew the thinking. That is where the breakthroughs come. All right. I went long on this one, but had a lot to process. Got a slow start. We're going to see y'all again next week. I hope this has been insightful and it helps. We will see you soon. All right. Bye bye.